We are honored to have 4 distinguished guests with us today who represent a wealth of experience as employers, specifically of chiropractic associates. The discussion we will have with these experts explores some questions about chiropractic associate positions, both from a business owner's perspective, as one possibly looking to expand or retire, as well as a student perspective, who may be now considering their first employment options after school. We sincerely thank all our panelists, Dr. Maya Gonzales, Dr. Michelle Marconi, Dr. Guillermo Bermudez, and Dr. l.Romero for their time as part of this online forum. Let's begin. I'll start first with Dr. Bermudez. Dr. Bermudez, briefly tell us about yourself and your current practice.
Hi, my name is Dr. Guillermo Bermudez. I work in Hillsboro, and I also have a practice in Raleigh Hills. So we have 2 locations. I've been in practice now for 18 years here in Portland, 1 year in Florida. And we have a staff of 8 people in our practice.
Thank you. Dr. Gonzales?
Dr. Maya Gonzales, and I've been in practice for almost 16 years. And I have worked as an associate and now as a business owner. And my practice is in Evergreen, Colorado. Currently have an associate, and in my practice, we do chiropractic, nutrition, massage therapy, exercise rehab, and I have a staff of 5 people right now.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzales. Dr. Marconi?
Hi, I'm Dr. Michelle Marconi. I'm owner of Marconi Chiropractic and Wellness in Tacoma, Washington. And I've been in practice for almost 16 years, like Dr. Gonzales. And my current practice that I'm in right now, we have about 6 employees. We do chiropractic, massage, acupuncture, personal training, nutrition, and Reiki. And I do not have an associate at the time, but I am wanting one. My other practice that I had with my last partner, so I am looking for one currently.
And Dr. Romero?
Yes, my name is l.Romero. I've been in practice almost 30 years. My background is pretty complete. I have 4 offices. I actually have 5 offices. I do medical legal all over the country, so I do need associates. I've had as many as 5 associates. I've had as many as almost 30 employees. We are a fairly large chiropractic corporation. We have offices in Tacoma, Kent, Federal Way, and Burien. I have worked at a higher level in chiropractic, especially with associates. And I'm looking forward to this discussion and participation and seeing how we can make all this better. So thank you.
Thank you, panelists. Let's start first with Dr. Gonzales for the next question. Why did you decide to hire associates?
My initial need to hire associates came because I was having my second child, and I wanted to be able to go on maternity leave, and I didn't want to bring in someone who wasn't really invested in the clinic. So I hired an associate to come in and do that. And another reason why I wanted to hire an associate is because I wanted my practice to be open full time. So 9 to 6, Monday through Friday, and on the weekends. And I knew that as a working parent and wanting to be part of the community and get involved in the community, I wasn't going to be able to be on site for that many hours. So I wanted to have someone else in the clinic as well.
Dr. Romero?
So my experience with associates started back in the 90s, and initially it has changed. The need and the necessity for associates has changed based on the times, the reality of issues, and how we do business in the chiropractic profession. So the associates support the office. What I look for is an associate that can actually heal, can actually participate as a chiropractor and as a leader within the auspice of the office. I'm looking for more than just an employee that can just provide adjustments. I'm actually looking for a participant. However, we are a corporate structure, so we try to fit in within that corporate structure, a reasonable pay scale, a reasonable standard of education and postgraduate education. So my dynamic with associates has changed from just needing someone to fill in time and support to basically helping run an office, deal with the management of the office, and be a leader within that their hours that they participate in the office. So I look at associates more as an employee that is actually a vested partner in the corporation.
And Dr. Bermudez, why did you decide to hire associates?
Well, I started in Beaverton, and the practice was the office itself was fairly small, but we were very busy, so we needed to expand, and we needed to be available. We needed to basically expand our hours in order to be able to service the patient that were wanting to come into our office. So I hired my first associate in 2008, and it was basically a place where we wanted to have somebody who can obviously contribute to the practice, but also be able to grow and coach as part of our team. So for us, it was a needs-based decision.
Dr. Marconi, your answer?
First of all, I loved all those answers as I resonated with a lot of that. Just like Dr. Gonzales, we need an associate in my original practice because I was going to go on maternity leave, and really wanted somebody that was invested in the practice and wanted to grow with it. So for us, it was finding someone just like they said, like someone that wants to be part of it and be invested in it. And I got to say, that's the best part about it, is finding someone who really feels like your family in there and actually cares about the practice and wants to see it grow versus just someone that has a 9 to 5. So I've had an amazing experience with that, but that's also too why I got an associate, because I was going to have a baby.
Okay. So let's dive a little bit deeper. What are you looking for in an associate? You know, for example, what characteristics or experiences are beneficial? And I'll turn that back to Dr. Marconi.
Oh, cool. I think it's really important that the associate mesh well with my technique. Like I do manual diversified, so I wouldn't want someone coming in with an activator technique that would not mesh. But I also love having someone who does similar to what I do, but then can bring something. Dr. Gonzales and I used to work together, and she did ART, and I loved it because I didn't know much about it. So I was like, I felt joy from learning something new that was going to benefit practice. But I really find that figuring out what their 5-year plan and what their goals are, and if they mesh well, that's all that matters. And I think it's super important to be transparent and honest. Whatever direction you go, you have to figure out if you're going to work well together, because you're trying, this is like a work family. So I really find that just being honest and figuring out the all mesh well is super important.
Dr. Bermudez, what are your comments?
So we look for somebody who believes and embodies our core values. I look for somebody who is humble but confident. Humility is great in the profession, but also having the confidence to be able to deliver what you're promising. Somebody who can communicate a treatment plan is extremely important. I also want somebody who wants to be a leader. I want them to come into their office with the mindset that they own it, because someday they may. And they may own my practice, or they may own their own practice. And I feel blessed to be part of that process, because I think every associate I've had has their own practice now, and they're very successful. So that's part of being the coach of it. But I also want somebody who has an interest in sports medicine. So I specialize in sports medicine. So we do active release technique, Graston technique. We have equipment called Optigate that allows us to evaluate movement. We do nutrition, and of course, diversified adjustments. But even though you have that part of the practice, which is the sports, 70%, 60 to 70% of our patients are just the patients in your community. So you need to be able to communicate and just really be a part of the team. And again, humble and confident, not only with our patients, but also with the staff is very important. So you need somebody who just really integrates well with the company and the core values of the company and the team.
Thank you. And Dr. Romero, what characteristics and experiences are you looking for?
So far, the answers are excellent. I would agree with all the participants here. What I really look for is people that are well aligned with the practice, just like Dr. Marconi was talking about, and technique and so forth. And what Dr. Bermudez talks about, the ownership. The biggest challenges I have is what happens after the first 3 months or 4 months of the actual startup of an associate. That's where you see the true colors. The reality is that, like Dr. Bermudez says, that they have to understand the sports medicine side. They have to understand whatever the core values of that company are, or that practice. The alignment and that synergistic belief is crucial to prevent burnout. You need to prevent miscommunications. You need to be completely transparent. And the associate, the burden of real proof is actually in the associate. They need to be healers. They can't be doing a little experimenting and wasting your time. They need to come in prepared to do a service, and it's the company's job to provide that alignment or that opportunity for success. So you want to set up your associate for success if the core values and all is well designed. So what actually ends up happening is you have to really monitor an associate. You need to groom an associate. You need to develop an associate. And an associate is more like a 5-year program in development. It doesn't really matter how much experience you bring to the table. The alignment of a successful office with a new associate is crucial. The other important thing is how the team works together. The team consists of chiropractic technicians and therapists and et cetera. The doctor needs to be a leader. Everyone looks up to the leader. So there is this process of development that is just extremely crucial. So what I look for an associate is really all those core values, and they really do need to prove themselves over time, and time will tell them. And then you need to do honest assessments and their performance that are positive and yet moving forward. I think that at the bottom of the whole thing, or in the fundamental, it's more of a residency program that we do not have in our profession. And if we, the stakeholders, can provide that for the new practitioners or practitioners that are coming in, it's a win-win. And if we can do that, we are doing it right, because the combinations are tremendous. And the trick is to find those combinations and really tie them in so that everybody wins. You need to have a win-win attitude, and then our patients really benefit from that.
Dr. Gonzales?
Well, I too agree with everything I've heard so far. I think that the points people have made are really important. The biggest things that I look for in an associate is someone who is confident, like Dr. Bermudez said. Someone who's a great diagnostician is really important to me, and it has confidence in that, and someone that can communicate a good treatment plan. I also want someone that does want to learn, but I don't want someone who wants me to hold their hand through every single decision that they make. I feel like most associates are newer grads, and so they may not have the best hands when they first come out of school, but you can tell their potential, and that part will come. That part will come really well. But as long as they are confident and they're good at diagnosing and knowing what kind of care and looking at how long that kind of care will take for a specific patient, and being able to communicate that with the patient, those are the biggest things that I look for. And then the other thing, which is also probably equally as important, is making sure that their philosophy about chiropractic care aligns with mine. And so that we can be on the same page when we talk about chiropractic care to our patients. And I want them to want to learn. I want them to come in and be one of the doctors in the clinic. I might be the owner of the business, but as far as the practice goes, we're all just doctors in the clinic. And I want them to come in with the confidence to be able to have that equality that I do as far as patient care goes.
Thank you, panelists. Let's see. Our next question says, tell us about some challenging and/or successful experiences in hiring associates, and what were some real learning lessons from those experiences? We'll start first with Dr. Romero.
Thank you. So one of the biggest challenges I see is matching a fair wage and the expectations for a survivable income. I think we've all been talking about what we want in a practice to be successful, but we all remember the school loans, and we remember the apartment payments and everything else. We must align a decent livable wage without putting the carrot in front of their nose. A new associate is not going to bring profit to your office. I think it's clear from what we've been talking about that the new associate is going to support a successful office. So if your office is not successful, you should not be bringing in an associate. Because if you expect your office to grow with the associate and you haven't made it grow, it's not going to work. So what's important is that the associate and you align in first the technique, like we've talked about, the philosophy, the diagnostic skills, the healing aspect of it. But at the end of the day, that associate needs a livable wage. And the company needs to be able to sustain a livable wage with a fringe benefit, including a good benefit package, which includes good health care, includes continuing education, includes all their technical support and all the licensing that is needed. And it includes the actual best practices of documentation and et cetera. So the challenges that I have is meeting those expectations. So a new associate comes in, they are a front load to the company. That associate needs to understand that we are going to lose money for a long time before we ever synergistically align that. We need to understand that, so the expectations when things get tough are not destroyed. And I think that that goes without saying. So the biggest challenges I have is basically finding that balance where the associate has the talent to sustain the system so that eventually they can pay themselves a livable wage and the company can continue to do what we are all talking about. So in a nutshell, that's probably it, just making sure that we provide a livable wage. Because if we are not providing a livable wage, that associate will grow wings and go somewhere else.
Dr. Marconi?
That was really interesting. I like that he said that. I definitely want to make sure there's a livable wage, absolutely. But I usually cap it at a certain time period. I'll say, okay, this is what it is for 6 months, but this is how I'm going to help you and get more patients. This is how I'm going to help you with this. Because yes, I have a practice that can handle 2 people, but I also want the person coming in that's working with me to be working with me. And I want that person to want to grow their own practice too. So I absolutely agree with what you said. That was good. But I find if you give too much sometimes, there can be a little bit of disadvantages. So what I explain is, this is what the price is, this is what we're going to pay, but we're going to see this difference. And honestly, every single time I've hired an associate, the amount of time we allotted for a certain pay, it stopped halfway through because they were making more money than what we allotted for. And my point of saying that is that I try to encourage someone so much to really grow and build up their own practice like that. So that's kind of what I look for.
Dr. Gonzales?
I would say similar. I would say the 2 biggest challenges I have are when interviewing for associate positions is sometimes their expectations for their salary is above what is realistic. And then sometimes the other thing is to people who come out and just really do want their hand to be held a little too much. They're not comfortable like doing exams or making a diagnosis from the get-go. So those are the 2 biggest challenges. I mean, I have had people come and kind of treat it a little bit more kind of like they're the prize kind of thing, instead of like getting a great job as the prize. I've had, it's not very often, but I have had people who have like expected me to pay for them to travel out for an interview, that kind of thing. And I'm just like, that's just not realistic, but good luck with that. So that's probably the biggest challenge I've come across. I really do try to offer, like you guys have said, a very a livable wage that allows for growth. So there's always a growth factor in there where it's not capped. You're going to be, this is your base salary, but good for you. Let's make you some more money. Let's get you going so your salary is going to be quite a bit more than this. And I try to give them the tools that they need to go out in the community and do that and really feel like they have some ownership over their own career.
Thank you. Dr. Bermudez?
Could you repeat the question, Amy?
We're discussing, challenges in hiring associates. I mentioned successes too, but we can come back around to those.
Okay. So definitely what everybody has said so far is definitely a challenge. I think, we're talking about be human. You're going into a new place that is willing to invest in you because in the beginning you are a cost center. I mean, that's just a fact. Over time, however, you'll become a profit center, and hopefully you'll understand and you'll be able to balance the fact that, yeah, this doctor invested in you. We're not big corporations. We're small businesses. So what Dr. Gonzales was alluding to, like, you expect to be flown for an interview. Well, that's true for Intel or for Nike, but that's not true for a, little practice with, 1 chiropractor or 2 chiropractors or even big practices. But I think it is that's the financial challenge that may be a barrier to a practice. But I actually think the bigger challenge is It's getting somebody that you can pay well so that they can live well. And, we're talking about living wages. I think, students and all of us invested a lot of time training and in ourselves. So then you should be rewarded. But that reward has a balance, right, between what the practice invests and what you produce for it. I think a lot of associates go into a practice, and I hear this often, where, oh, I'm going to be an associate for 1 to 2 years and then leave. Well, if you do that, then I don't want you in my practice, because I want to train you. I want you to become an owner of this place. I want you to grow with us. I want you to be with us forever. And I treat my doctors like that, and I treat my staff like that. 3 of my staff have been with me for 8 years. So that's what we're looking for. So we're looking for somebody that I can grow with, coach in the beginning, but eventually be productive to the practice, and eventually grow with the practice and become, a big unit of the practice, and hopefully own it someday. So the challenge, I think, is that balance between you being an associate and being a cost center for the practice, being a profit center for the practice, and then sharing the profits long term. Rather than just leave. And in my experience, once you start, you've been out for a couple of years, the associates tend to want to go on their own, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because that's why we all became doctors, right? So we can run our own practice. But going in with the attitude that if I'm going to be there for 2 years or 4 years, I'm going to be productive, rather than go there for 2 years and then just leave. I think that's hard on a small practice.
Thank you, Dr. Bermudez. Let's see if we have time, we can come back to some more success stories. But I want to move on to our next question. Thinking through your fellow colleagues, peers, what advice might you give to someone considering hiring an associate for the very first time? Let's start first with Dr. Bermudez.
I think first is make sure that you can grow with that person. Make sure that you're practicing in a situation where you actually need to bring in somebody who is going to be productive, who's going to actually increase the value of the practice. And that doesn't mean that day one, they need to be producing for your practice, but it does mean that 3 to 6 months down the line, they are productive in your practice, and they are a profit center in your practice. Also, some of the same things that we already alluded to, which is that they fit your practice, that they have the core values of your practice, that they practice like you do, that they have your core values, because you, as the owner of the practice and the leader, you are that North Star that everybody is following. So if that person can see your vision and see your goals and align with them, then that's somebody who you want to hire. The other thing, this is the negative part of it, is fire early, because if you hire somebody who you have big aspirations for, and you thought they were going to be productive, and they're unhappy in your practice, it's actually better if you go separate ways early rather than later, because they're unhappy in your practice. They're unhappy in, with anything they produce. So you actually will be doing them a favor by getting, giving them the opportunity to look for another job where they fit in better. And that's a lesson that's taken me years and years and years to learn, because again, this is a partnership. You're both putting in a lot of heart and effort into it. I mean, if one of you is not happy, then that person can guarantee you will be much happier somewhere else, and they will thank you for it down the line.
Dr. Gonzales,
Can you repeat the question?
what advice do you have for someone who might be considering hiring an associate for the very first time?
Well, the very first thing you need to do before you hire an associate is look at your finances and make sure that you can afford to invest that money in an associate, because like these other doctors have said, the first several months it's an investment in them. They're not going to be bringing in an increased amount of income into your practice at the beginning. So make sure you can afford to hire someone. And then also when you're hiring someone, making sure again that they fit your philosophy. really find out from them what their goals are, and see if yours align with them. I actually don't think there's anything wrong with hiring someone that's only going to be in your practice for 2 years if you're on the same page. If you know that your goal is to help educate them and for them to contribute to your practice for 2 years and for them to go off and spread their wings and do their own thing after that, that's okay, as long as you're on the same page about that. So being open with who you're hiring, and then also really looking at what else you can offer someone besides just the dollar amount. Benefits towards continuing education is a really important thing. Finding someone who has aspirations to continue to learn, I think, is really important. So make sure you know what their goals are as far as that goes are. And then making sure that you talk to whoever you're going to hire about what your goals for them are, what your expectations for them are, and having ongoing meetings about that and going over that with them.
Dr. Marconi, what advice do you have for somebody considering hiring an associate for the very first time?
I want to make sure the associate knows what they're looking for. So some associates want to make a base salary, regardless if they see 1 patient or 100 patients in a day, and that's cool. Some people know, I want to grow. I want to make a commission base. So whatever you're wanting, you to figure that out and make sure you mesh well with the doctor. Personally, for me, I like hiring people that want a commission base because I want to get them off that base salary. This is just a personal experience. I've hired all my associates that way, so I'm not implying the other ways are wrong, but that's how I do it. And what I like about that is I've had other friends who had the ones where it's like you work, a lot and you only make a certain amount, and they start to get bitter. They start to like, oh, that could be more money. But I also understand why people do that. But for us, what I love doing is making sure that person has a good base and being like, okay, let's try and get you off that and let's get you more. I don't ever want to cap somebody, because if they're successful, I'm successful. So whatever associate they're looking for, make sure you mesh well with that and be very clear with that. Some people say, well, if you treat my patients, you only make this percentage. Some people say, if you treat yours, this percentage. Whatever it is, be sure to ask all of those questions. There's no right or wrong way. Just find a way that's going to make you feel confident and comfortable and feel like you're going to be successful. So that's what my advice would be.
Dr. Romero, what advice do you have for the chiropractor considering hiring their first associate?
I think all the answers are excellent, and the gamut is large there on the approach. I mean, from commissions to non-commissions. My approach is to reverse engineer the whole thing. So what can we make an hour profitable, and how many patients can we see using a best practice method? Then we try to fit in the support group. We burn so much an hour. We're a big company. We're burning so much an hour, regardless whether I give a percentage or they bring in their own patients or whatever, with the tech supports, the staff supports, with everything we do. So what I look for is an associate that is going to be part of the program. I do not, like Michelle gives a percentage, which is fine. I do not give a percentage. It creates a nightmare in the administration for us because we are larger. If we were a small operation, then I can see going through the books every month and looking at that carefully. But because we do have multiple clinics and we have multiple scenarios, we are more of a corporate structure. So what works for us is we need to fit people into a corporate structure. Now, we normally pay a little bit more, but I have larger receivables. So the company can sustain the problem that a small practice has. So it's not a solution. It's just an observation from our end. And it's not the only thing, just like the rest of the doctors are talking about. So we have to align that. But what I look for is I look for somebody that is going to be salary based. I provide a very good salary with a very good livable package. I'm looking for a long-term commitment, just like we all looking for a long-term commitment. I do want to build good chiropractors. I want to teach people what it takes. Is not just the technique to be a successful chiropractor. As we all know, it takes a lot. So what I try to do is I try to align it with the vision and the mission of the company. And therefore, they have the right purpose in what we should be doing. So I try to use best practices. I try not to make it super complex on the financial end. And I try to produce a livable wage. Now, my associates in the past have gone on to move on to bigger and better things. I encourage that. I promote that. I think it's healthy for the profession to give hope and so forth. But as we all know, running your own practice and taking care of what we have to do, 941 taxes and all the taxes and all the is not for everybody. So aligning that is core to success. And what I look for is basically an associate that's going to stay for a long time, like Dr. Bermudez said, and I'm looking for everything else the rest of the doctor said. But in my practice, in our style, we're looking for more of an employee base and someone that is just willing to just invest into the best practices of chiropractic and just be a motivator for the whole company. So I guess I'm looking for that dynamic, which is a little different, but it's still the same as everyone else. So that's really what it is.
Thank you, panelists. We have one final question for you. What advice would you give to the new alumni who might want to work with you? We'll start first with Dr. Gonzales.
Oh gosh, the first thing that I would say for people who are looking to be an associate is to either when you're in school or first out of practice, get your hands on as many people as you can and get your confidence up. Really look at investing in continuing education as a true investment, not an overhead. Understand that the better you are at what you do, the more people will seek you out. So, don't just find continuing education that checks the box. Find things that are going to actually make you a better doctor. And then when you're looking for an associate position, just like we've said, as the hiring doctor, you need to find a place that that aligns with your own beliefs. Just because some practice might be a popular practice or pays really well, you will not find success there if your philosophy about chiropractic and practice does not align with the clinic that you're going to work for. You will get constant pushback. You won't be able to practice the way that you want to practice or the way that you believe is proper. So make sure that when you're looking for a practice to practice in, that their philosophy really aligns with what yours is.
Dr. Romero, what advice might you have for the new chiropractor considering an associate position?
So the interview is very important, and just basically communicating and trying to have the same WIFMs, which is what's in it for me type of dynamic. And both sides are transparent and open about this, which I think we're all talking about the same thing. That is the crucial moment. An interview should take a long time. Sometimes it takes multiple days. You have to do a callback, check references, find out what their 5 and 10-year plans are. Try to anticipate the landmines in the relationship so that you can iron them out and see if they are a best fit. And like Guillermo said, the best thing you can do is end the relationship early. Just do everybody a favor if you recognize that. I mean, it should be up to us. We're the ones providing the opportunity, and we should be the ones making that decision. Now, with all due respect to the associate, we need to listen to that associate to make sure that they are a good plug-in, a good fit. But an associate never makes you money right off the bat. It's a long-term investment. And by the time they start breaking even, and Maya pointed it out, they might be looking for a place somewhere else. And therefore, we have to align that, because in order to be successful, both sides have to win. So what I look for is a win-win attitude after the first or second interview. And there's no hurry to hire, because if they're shopping around and they're looking for an opportunity, and you're calling them back for a second and they take another job, they did you a favor and they did themselves a favor, because that extra time buys into the decision-making for the long-term relationship. So it is important that that interview is planned correctly, and that we ask all the right questions, and that we throw out the possible and impossible scenarios to see how they can be dealt with in the future to have success. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want a very successful relationship. So that's how I do it.
Dr. Bermudez?
Well, I think from the associate's perception, I think it's important that the person that you look to get an associateship is somebody who you want to as a mentor. I think you should be looking for somebody who you want to emulate. And therefore, if you don't want to practice sports medicine, then maybe don't look for an associateship in my practice. It's very important that you find a position, again, that fits your needs also. And also being honest, whether you want to be long-term or short-term in the practice, that's okay, as long as it's all up front. That really is what works best. Honesty is really crucial in those first moments when you're deciding to look for a practice. A practice that's going to support you and hopefully grow with you is something that I would be looking forward to also as somebody looking for a job. But I think the number one is, do I fit in that practice? Will I be happy in that practice? Will I make everybody happy in that practice too? Because if you go into a practice and you're not excited about it, or it's not a practice that you see yourself being anything like that, then that's probably not the practice for you. And I can tell you, when I was a student, and I went and observed a lot of practices, there was a lot of doctors who I admired. And then when I saw how they practiced and how they interacted with their staff, that's not something I wanted to be like that at all. So therefore, I didn't look for internships or preceptorships with them at all, because that's not who I was and that's not who I wanted to become. So I think as an associate, look for a practice that you see yourself owning, whether it's that practice or a practice just like it, so that you can grow and learn from this doctor. I would also want, again, a mentor, a coach, to be the owner of this practice, because if somebody's willing to coach you and mentor you, not only in the clinical aspects, but also in human resources, how to run a business, what Dr. Romero said, how to pay your taxes, how to run payroll. There's a lot of things that go on as an owner that the associate doesn't see. And one of the things that we talk about a lot in our practice, in our meetings, is everybody sees the money that's coming in. Everybody does, right? Your front desk does, your biller does, the doctor does, they see the numbers. Nobody sees the money going out. So if you have somebody who's willing to coach you in how to manage, the money coming in, or your receivables versus your payments, and how to manage a business, then, and that's what you want to do, well, then that's great. If you want to be an associate and you never want to own your own practice, that's fine too. But just be honest with yourself in the beginning. And I think that that's better for everybody involved, because as clinic owners and practice owners, we're looking for somebody that is going to, again, be part of the team, be happy working for you, because boy, an employee who's not happy really is not a good fit for anybody. So you want to be happy as an associate. So find a position that makes you happy.
Thank you. Dr. Marconi?
Okay, so the advice I would give is, whatever you decide for practice you think you're going to like, whether it be high volume, slow volume, find, if you can, if you've done your preceptorship, and go to that type of practice. Really embody that and see if you like it, because you may be surprised that you don't or you do. And if you find a doctor that you do want to work with and you are still in that section, please see if you could work with them, because then you have that little time to be like, do I like, do I not like? Also, I know it sounds silly, but it's really important to respect the doctor you're working for. And what I mean by that is that in the beginning of every relationship, there's always that honeymoon phase. So really get to know that person. If you really feel you can respect that person, you will grow so much as a person too. Shadow everybody. Check all the boxes. Look at different types of clinics, and you might realize that, oh, I actually like this type. And then it will help you guide in what kind of type of practice you want. Another good thing too is see if the doctor will let you talk to past associates, ones that have left, ones that are there. I think that's a big thing, because you want to hear what they said, because I could say all the stuff I want, but they might not believe me. So it's important to say, hey, go ahead and talk to that associate. I think that's really powerful, because they're going to get the insight from that point of view. But I say shadow as many doctors as you can, like learn. And I know personally, I love when people come to shadow. Like I have no qualms about spreading the love of chiropractic. I think it's amazing. So we make sure you respect the person and just talk to everybody.
Thank you, panelists. Well, we have just a few moments left. I wanted to make space for any last comments, or if you have any short anecdotes about successful relationships that didn't get mentioned earlier. Now's the time to comment. Does anyone have any further comments?
I would just love to say that there is no wrong way of picking associates. I actually love this panel. I love how it's so diverse. And my way will not be right for everybody, but my personal thing, I was talking to Dr. Gonzales before that started, is that I love hiring friends. And what I mean by that is I love when someone comes in and they already are invested in you. They already want you to succeed and I want them to succeed. So personally for me, I've hired most of my friends and it's worked so amazing. And I gotta say, Dr. Gonzales, that she used to work with me for 6 years and she said something amazing that made my heart soar, is that if she was still in Washington, she'd still be working with me. And that means a lot because I truly enjoyed working with her and I respect her completely. So I don't know, I respect her completely. So thank you.
Of course. Well, that just goes to show it was definitely a very successful associate and an owner situation. And that's how I kind of developed how I wanted to shape my associate and doctor relationship. And that was giving my associates the freedom to be doctors and not be chiropractic assistants. I really want to hire people and want people to come into my practice who will be able to make the clinical decisions that they feel right about. I don't want to tell someone how many times they need to see someone. I want them to have really good clinical decision-making and to be solid with the understanding that they are doctors because they got in this to make people better. And what that looks like is different for everybody, depending on what kind of practice you have. But I have a sports medicine practice as well. And so I do everything from performance optimization, it's basically like sports wellness care, right? We're trying to make people function better, to treating an injury and sending people on their way and completely discharging them as a patient, and they'll come back when they're hurt again. But that's my practice. And I want my associates to have the freedom to make those kind of clinical decisions and be confident in it and not have me as their boss over their shoulder telling them that no, they need to see somebody more, or why didn't they get better faster? Or I want them to have that freedom to make those kind of decisions. And I think that makes for a very healthy clinic atmosphere.
Any last remarks? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I think when it comes, I think I've had 9 associates over the years, and I think every experience has been positive. Despite all these little challenges that we're talking about, that's just part of business, right? But if you were to ask me what is my general impression of having associates, I think it's positive. I think it's good for the profession to have more people who practice in an ethical, honest way. And I see, if we're going to be stewards of the profession, I think it's great that we invest in becoming and modeling behavior that you want other doctors to also embody. So despite having issues with some associates, that were negative towards the practice, my overall impression is that I love having an associate. I'm looking for one now. I love having somebody to work with and bounce ideas from. Most of the time they're right out of school, so they know things that you don't know, and you know things that they don't know. So I think it was Dr. Gonzales who alluded to, that partnership, working together. We can both learn from each other. It's not just one way. As an owner and as the employer, it's not always coming, from me to you. A lot of it comes from you to me too. So we can learn a lot from our associates. They are productive. They are wonderful. They add great value to your practice, but also to your team. So despite, all the things that we said here, overall, my experience with associates has always been wonderful, and I don't regret an associate that I've ever hired.
Thank you. Last remarks, Dr. Romero?
Look, I agree with everyone. I just, my situation is a little different because I'm dealing with multiple associates. So we have to have rounds, and that's how we basically cross-pollinate that information. We also try to align the more seasoned associates, which are and I don't even call them associates. I mean, they're just doctors in the office. You have the older doctors that have sold their practice and want to work as a doctor in a chiropractic setting. That particular doctor has a completely different mindset than a new graduate coming in and trying to pay their school loans. So what we try to do is we do try to have rounds, and they're clinical rounds, and kind of basically not reinvent the wheel when it comes to just educating everybody so we can align the values that everyone here is talking about. I mean, we're all saying the exact same thing. The key is that we all have different practices: sports medicine, medical legal, wellness, major medical, so that dynamic, that doctor-patient relationship and that doctor-doctor relationship are crucial. And I guess we're never going to find out until we dive into it and basically try to iron it out. And then we find out whether it works or not. But the principles that we've talked about are all key. They're all super valuable. The takeaway is that the chiropractic profession is a great profession to be in. And if we can all support, I think all the doctors here want the same thing. We want the profession to be better, whether they work with us or someone else. We want good, ethical, transparent, good treating chiropractors. So I just think it's our job as business owners to align that, provide some kind of opportunity, and then use everything we've all talked about here to really make it a successful win-win.
Thank you, panelists. That concludes our presentation. I hope this encourages new alumni to seek out connections. You can do so using the UWS Switchboard platform. And thank you again to all our panelists for their participation in this discussion. Take care.
What an honor. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.